Hello. I may not be an entrepreneur, but I have seen people around me dream, think and execute. It started early on with my father. Coming from Rajasthan, he wasn't privileged to the lifestyle that I am party to. He always tells me, "What we're doing today is not what we started with." My father started his first business with his brother, selling katai sour candy on the streets of a small town, Nagaur, in Rajasthan. After the untimely death of my grandfather, the responsibility of a family of 9, my grandmother and her 8 kids came on the shoulders of Papa and bade Papa, my father's elder brother. My father was just 13 years old then. He got the taste of how difficult survival could be. He then started his legacy of learning to become a self-made, independent entrepreneur. His first learning. It will take every last shred of your strength, but don't give in. Just start somewhere. Leaving the family in Rajasthan with his elder brother, he made a journey to Hyderabad for the first time, alone. He remembers traveling in the train, without a ticket, actively escaping the TT. He finally made it to Hyderabad, without any degree, without any experience, without any money. He didn't even know how to speak in English. With my uncle's contacts, he found someone who was ready to take him in and teach him the basics of the jewelry business. Till date, he bows down and touches their feet every time he sees them. Because when he had nothing, that family took him in as their own and gave him the gift of knowledge. His second learning. You'll have to do a lot of research, set groundwork for your business, and for that, you'll have to learn from experience. Look for a mentor, and always keep learning. He then set out to become what his 13-year-old self had only dreamt about. With a lot of hard work, persistence and courage, he branched out from his mentor and started his own, tiny jewelry store. He used to work 15 hours a day, travel miles together, just to meet people and try to inculcate their style into his method of working. He then came home, and worked on his spoken English and learned how to use a computer. His third learning. Never stop learning. Meet people, talk to them, see what they're doing different and appreciate their work. There are many people out there to help, you just have to be humble and simply ask. My father is now a successful entrepreneur and has done much more than his mentor in the business. He is proud, but also modest about it. But the one thing he still practices in life is that he never turns down a man who asks for help. He was that person once. Every person who sets out to be an entrepreneur is that person once in their life. His final learning. Embrace the struggle. Every failure might seem like an endpoint. Every setback will make you want to quit. But remember, one day you'll think about it and you'll be mad inspired. My father always said, "I want to be the person who is capable of providing employment to people, and making their lives happy." This attitude, and all his life's learning struggles, failures and setbacks, is what's made him a successful entrepreneur. And every person who aspires to be one should know this, should believe in this, and every other aspect investment, partners, liabilities, capital etc., will automatically fall in place. After 11 years in business, and being proudly featured in the book Make It Happen, The Prince's Trust Guide to Starting Your Own Business, I can share the following wisdom through my adventures. 1. Build on your strengths. As an IT genius, did I mention I'm also modest, of 20 years, I opted to start my own IT consultancy when the e-learning startup I had worked for went belly up. Creating a business around what I already knew and loved was a no-brainer, and a smart move as I already had personal clients I've worked with, and the skills to take on new ones. 2. The business plan. The business plan is more important than some might think, and the task of creating one can also bring surprising new insight to a business. Through a detailed business plan you can analyze both yourself, and your competition's strengths and weaknesses and set short, medium, and long-term targets. Don't rush the creation of a business plan. My first business plan took me 3 to 4 weeks to complete, but the strength of it won much needed investment. Well worth the time and effort. 3. Don't overstretch yourself. I'm guilty of this myself, which is why it is a very valuable bit of advice. Don't overstretch yourself in the pursuit of revenue. It is far better to tell a customer you can take on their project next month, for example, than to take on too much. Not only will this save you from failing to meet targets, due to an increased workload, but it will also make you look like you're in high demand. And that's always good. 4. Don't grow too quickly. Starting and running a business isn't a race, and you should never expand faster than the market can handle. There's nothing worse than growing quickly, only to find there isn't enough business to sustain the growth. Growth is a good thing, but only when the time is right. 5. Accounts. I know this sounds like a no-brainer, but trust me, when you get underway in your business, especially as a freelancer or solopreneur, accounts tend to be forgotten or put on the "I'll do that later" pile. Accounting isn't one of my strengths, and I'm guilty of leaving it till much later in the year, but it is important to keep on top of your accounts, as doing so will help you out when it's time to submit them to the Inland Revenue UK. Being an entrepreneur is a way of life, and something that changes the way you think. No matter how hard things have become along my own personal journey, I've never regretted the decision to become an entrepreneur, because I know I've grown as a person and a businessman. There's an endless trove of advice for budding entrepreneurs, some of it quite sophisticated, calling for hours of research and planning. While such preparation can be useful, it can also be a distraction from the simple principles that make or break the success of a business. Brilliance and innovation are exciting, but they're not the strongest determinant of whether or not a business will thrive. Here are a few important things for all first-time entrepreneurs to understand before they get started. 1. Ask yourself why you want to be an entrepreneur in the first place. Everyone has motivations for starting a business that can be broken down into two categories: explicit and implicit. Explicit motivation is based off of logic. In terms of why you want to launch a business, your implicit motivation is probably because it sounds fun and you might be able to make a lot of money. Your implicit motivations are your innermost desires and fears, and it's by understanding these that you can predict whether or not your business will be successful. For example, your implicit motivation may be that you want to be famous and widely acclaimed. While this isn't a bad thing, it can muddle your planning and practices for your business and lead you astray. The most important thing anyone wanting to start a business can do right now is self-analysis. Once you become aware of your implicit and explicit motivation behind starting a business, you can align the two. This is extremely important, otherwise your subconscious desires could interfere with achieving the goal you've set out to accomplish. 2. Don't be afraid of simple ideas. A wild misconception in business is that in order for an entrepreneur to be successful, he or she must have an idea that the world has never seen before. Sure, many successful businesses do break the mold, but a groundbreaking idea alone does not make a business prosper. In my latest book, I look at the stories behind Sam Walton, founder of Walmart, and William Shockley, inventor of the transistor. William Shockley's invention was arguably the most important of the 20th century. The problem was, Shockley was not an entrepreneur. He was not interested in making people happy, more on that below. Instead, he was committed to the inventing and innovation. As a result, Shockley was a nightmare to work with, and a year after the launch of his business, not a single transistor has been sold. Compare this with Sam Walton, and it's clear that the most important determinant of success is whether or not your idea actually speaks to customers. Walton bought a failing retail franchise, and all he did was pick up the employee manual and try to execute it to the fullest. As he did this, customers returned to Walmart, and next thing you know, it's the biggest retailer in the world. 3. Happiness is key. This is perhaps the most important concept for any aspiring entrepreneur to keep in mind. Successful entrepreneurs make their customers so happy that they give them money in return for the services and products, again and again and again. I came to understand this tenet of entrepreneurship the hard way, when my first startup failed. I became fascinated in an innovative technology that made high-tech dinner plates, but I never stopped to think if these plates would make anyone happy. And so the business failed. My second time around, I was in close contact with people who I knew would be satisfied with what I had to offer, which was data and information that was extremely useful to CEOs. The company I built to offer this information, iSoupli, was hugely successful. I wasn't reinventing the wheel, I was simply supplying customers with a product they needed, and which made them happy. When it comes to transactions, meaning, when customers hand you their money, they are driven by emotions. The customer's happiness for receiving goods must overpower any negative emotions they feel about spending money. So it's essential, customers must be happy, or else they won't buy what you're selling.